Hello and welcome to another episode of Deep Dive Film School.
This week we're going to continue our Visionary Sci-Fi Festival with Bong Joon-Ho's 2017's Okja.
Let's go ahead and jump right in. I'm Adam Sherlock.
And I'm Adam Pulcher.
And this week, as you said, we are doing Okja. This was a 2017 Netflix film.
Original film, yep.
Done from its very inception as that. Obviously, probably the biggest one is still Bird Box, right?
Yeah, that one blew up.
Yeah, definitely. Okja, not quite so much. Did it? How did it do?
I mean, it's always hard to tell because they don't really have box office numbers for stuff like this.
Yeah, it is weird.
It
seems
is
like
all streaming, but...
And they're like, 455 billion people watched Bird Box, but we're not going to show you our numbers. And
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
Guess we'll take your word for it, Netflix,
Yeah, exactly.
that it's one of the biggest movies of all time.
Yeah. But they don't want to actually claim it.
No.
No, it's also not really a movie for everyone, I think,
Yeah, I was
there's
thinking
some harsh
about that.
stuff in it.
I was thinking about that watching it. There's a lot of elements that almost feel like it could be sort of a classic 80s kids movie sort of a thing in a lot of ways.
Interesting, I didn't think about that.
But it has that like Spielbergian adventure kind of a thing early on.
It's really funny. I want to talk about Bong Joon-Ho real quick because he's someone that in our past podcasts we talked about a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
And we reviewed a lot of his movies. He's the guy who did Snowpiercer, The Host, Mother, Memories of Murder. If you have not seen any of these, to me, he's one of the top 10 directors working today. I think he's completely underrated.
And in particular, when you look at how different those movies you just listed are.
But Memories of Murder is his first movie, and it's the kind of classic South Korean, the thing we see from South Korean directors a lot.
Like The Chaser.
The Chaser, Old Boy,
Yes.
stuff like that. Directors like Chan-wook Park and Kim Ji-woon, who did I Saw the Devil.
Yep.
Stuff like that is just, they love those revenge thrillers, right? And they're really good at them. Like, they watched a lot of Scorsese, I think, in South Korea.
And a lot of Fincher, too.
Yeah.
There's a
For
lot
sure.
of gritty, just disgusting aspects to all those movies that you just listed.
No doubt. Yeah, totally.
Now, I do think
but
if
Bong
those
Joon-Ho,
guys...
though, I think whenever we've talked about him in the past, we've always talked about these big, huge, great directors when we were comparing his work to other things. You just said Spielberg. In the past, we said Fincher for sure. We said Kubrick, like all sorts of things. Coen Brothers.
One to me
and
is
all of his movies are so different.
Terry Gilliam.
I can see that.
Just in the way, well, and I guess to maybe not a lesser extent, but I guess another director would be City of Lost Children. Why am I at a loss for the director's name? Amelie. Jean-Pierre Jeunet.
Yeah.
But the same thing of like taking a lot of times even well-known actors that we know and creating sort of these weird caricatures of them. Like in so many ways, a movie like Okja to me is like if they were ever going to make a live-action version of the Triplets of Belleville, then you need to have Bong Joon-Ho direct it.
Oh, that would be good.
Because he has a way of being like, oh, here you go, like this is, and you're like, but I know what Jake Gyllenhaal looks like, and you've made him into this like really bizarre cartoon character.
Oh, his character we'll get to for sure.
But it's just like, I've never really seen a director do that to this degree, where it feels so surreal.
Yeah.
But again, almost like a surreal cartoon.
Yeah, it definitely has surreal moments, way more than his other movies, I think. And, we're in a future, and, we put this in the Sci-Fi Fest, and I'll ask you why in a minute, but, like, we're in a future that's not necessarily dystopian. It's to a point where we're at 7 billion people in the world, and livestock is now a celebrity.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And they have this plan over 10 years. Tilda Swinton runs this company that is exploiting this, and a
pair of twins,
and we only see Miranda for the most part.
Yeah.
And Lucy is her sister. Is that correct? Yeah. Or no, Lucy. Nancy is the older twin sister.
Nancy, I
is
think
that
that's
a thing?
right.
Older
yeah.
twin sister.
Older twin sister. What? A couple seconds.
At least a couple. You could tell she's the older one. Though.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
There's a young complex going on.
Yeah.
With Lucy, not Nancy. And my favorite. This is such a great slipped-in line at the beginning when she's giving her speech. She talks about. We know my grandfather was a terrible man. My father was another.
And everybody there like chuckles. And I guess that's the thing, and we can talk about it a little bit more later about this sort of like what makes this sci-fi. But I think one of the things right out of the gates for me is this news conference, because it feels like this mixture of current buzzwords where we have her talking about, we're here to reclaim this space, right?
Yeah.
But then also adding into it, that her saying, and it has to fucking taste good. Like that acerbic edge to it is what a slightly futuristic, totally appropriate, viral marketing ad campaign would be, right? Like, we're not there today, but we're really, really close, and this is just turning that volume up on it to 11, right?
For sure.
And everything in this movie, those elements are turned up to 11. One thing I was really interested to learn is that this screenplay was co-written by John Ronson. He did The Psychopath Test. He's done a series, he did the book Them, which is about extremism. He did So You've Been Publicly Shamed. So he does all these books sort of about like socio-political issues in the world.
For sure.
And so it kind of blew my mind. Like, I've never even known the guy to write fiction at all. And the fact that he co-wrote this, I'm like, actually that makes a lot of sense.
You sure it's the same guy?
It is the same guy. But, I spent so long talking about these socio-political issues that it makes a lot of sense.
Well, and I think Bong Joon-Ho really likes the class warfare stuff a bit, right? Like if you think of his past movies, Snowpiercer is the biggest example.
Well, to me, this
even the host has
very much so.
That.
Very much so. The host also has the really funny family dynamics that we see in this movie. I think Okja could be 6 months before the start of Snowpiercer. Right?
Sure.
There are too many people on the planet. Everybody is battling with each other. There's all these like weird little terrorist factions, like underground groups,
Well, we get this kind of opening montage after she has this news conference that kind of just sets up the exposition for the movie,
right?
Basically, in that they need 10 years to raise these super pigs, is basically what they call them. They're like pigs the size of rhinos, pretty much.
Yeah, or even like a hippo.
I think it was based off of a manatee.
Oh, okay, I could see that.
I mean, you could see it in the face, but just huge things. But we get this almost My Neighbor Totoro, right, vibes to it, right?
Totally.
At the beginning, where she's walking around with this big goofy animal, and they're kind of having these cute little
things.
There's
a lot of Studio Ghibli in this early scene, definitely.
You can tell he was influenced by Miyazaki, absolutely.
Yeah.
But you see that, and really most of it's, there's like a good 5 to 7 minutes with no dialogue.
Yeah.
It's just them walking around doing silly things, and shows him like pooping and stuff like that.
And
he's fantastical, right? He's obviously not real.
The CGI here is so well done that it's very like, they're just powerful and interesting scenes to watch. Like, it's really it's so much exposition in just getting, I guess the exposition is getting the audience to just care about Okja as a character.
Sure.
And to understand that she is going to sacrifice herself for this little girl, the character Nija. Just the way in which Okja is willing to sacrifice for Mija, and the way in which Okja isn't just this big dumb animal. Like, there's real intelligence in those eyes.
Yeah, for sure.
And real love and caring. And it's, this is after our opening press conference. So, like, we know from the very go, like, oh, your
this is all
food.
A big company.
Like, your food. Like, that's why you're here. And that never really leaves us. I think that always kind of is boiling in the back of our minds. And that really helps the urgency through the movie continue on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. You know, I think really kind of the first interactions we get outside of this news conference is Jake Gyllenhaal and his crew hiking up this mountain.
Oh my God.
We kind of get an intro to Jake Gyllenhaal and his like his off-camera personality is just as strange as his on-camera personality.
Well, and he's sort of this like, you know, he's some weird amalgam of like
Steve Irwin.
Steve Irwin, definitely. Yeah. I was going to say that sort of, the Steve Irwin kind of character mixed in with sort of like
Guy Fieri.
Guy Fieri. What's the name of his show? Dives.
Dine-ins, drive-ins,
and dives, or some. I don't. I've never watched. I mean, I think you and I accidentally watched it in Vegas once, but it's that kind of a thing where it's like this super heightened, ridiculous personality. But then the idea, it takes you so long to kind of figure out. Okay, this guy is a complete idiot, and he's a total lunatic too.
Oh,
but you're also like.
You mean long in the movie?
Yeah, like does he love...
You think he has some kind of power at first?
Well,
it seems like
or does he actually love animals?
Well, he's the face of her corporation, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, is he just putting on a front? Is he cashing a paycheck?
Yeah, and so by the time you kind of really discover...
He's very spastic.
He's very spastic. It is the funniest character. When did Nightcrawler come out?
2014, probably.
Really? Yeah. Okay. To me, I was like, because he just looks as bug-eyed and skinny as he does in Nightcrawler, and so I'm like, did they film this right around the same time as that?
I appreciate an actor that really chooses his roles, though, right? And just and knows like what he wants and what I'm sure he has people advising him in certain areas and stuff like that. But like for the most part, he's rarely in a bad movie, right?
No, he makes really good decisions for the most part.
So and this was so off.
Bubble Boy isn't the best.
Well, I don't think you have the power you did when you're making Bubble Boy. He was probably thinking, "Oh, I get to lead a movie now," and who cares if it's a ripoff of John Travolta movie from the 80s.
But like a road trip, man. It's like zany. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't remember Bubble Boy, you should check out...
Heather Graham, right?
Yeah, you should check out Gyllenhaal's early work. He is fantastic here, though.
But this is so off the wall for him,
yeah. Well, and I think, again, the reason why I made the comparison to Triplets of Belleville is because... And this is something that Bong Joon-Ho...
Johnny Wilcox.
That's his character. Yeah, zoologist Johnny Wilcox. Bong Joon-Ho loves... He gets these really weird ideas, and I think that I really do think that his muse is Tilda Swinton.
Sure. Yeah.
He loves putting her in the most ridiculous outfits.
Oh yeah.
Well, and always
Snowpiercer,
right, and always with the most ridiculous, like either facial affectation or something like big bug-eye glasses, or here it's the braces and the really silly hair.
Yeah.
But he loves it so much.
She's a strange-looking person.
She's a very strange-looking person.
And he takes advantage of that.
Exactly. That's a perfect way of saying it. It's a perfect way of saying it. And he kind of does that, maybe not to a silly effect, but he does that with so many of the actors here. And it's so fun to see these actors have these very specific looks to them, as well as the way that they're acting.
Yeah.
Paul Dano's another great one.
He looks mostly like himself.
But the way that he's acting is very interesting. It's very different than a lot of times the way that we see Dano act too.
Sure.
He's very soft spoken through most of this, but also is a very powerful character. I love these. He obviously is the leader of the whatever chapter of the ALF has decided that they're going to save these super pigs, Okja in particular.
For sure. I mean, we're still on the mountain though, and her grandfather kind of takes her out in the forest and gives her this golden pig, kind of as a payment, saying, Okja, he's going. I know I told you we bought him, but he's never been ours.
Yeah.
And he's a sweet old man, right? And just wants her to be happy.
Well, it doesn't really, I think in so many ways, there's this cultural intersection that's really interesting between sort of, the grandfather still taking her down to see her parents and the other ancestors down there.
Yeah.
And that, Mija is this very strong-willed little girl who just already is initially suspicious of everybody that she meets in those ways, and she's very savvy that way. and Grandpa just like wants to live on his farm up at the top of the mountain, and like that's all he cares about.
Yep.
And it's really interesting to see these sort of again, as you were saying, sort of like a lot of sort of socio-political kind of aspects to this movie, as well as sort of cultural aspects between sort of the Eastern and Western cultures. And I think it's really, I wish that this movie had done better, not just because I love it and I think that it's a really fun movie, but also because I think that, in particular in this day and age where we do see so much whitewashing happening when movies sort of take place in like with Eastern culture added into it, and even Tilda Swinton has caught some shit for that in the last couple of years with Doctor Strange. I think to see a movie that's been able to be both super bizarre, really fun, have tons of action and adventure in it, be a completely original storyline, and then be international without falling under the spell of any of this like whitewashing issue, or somebody feeling like they can't do the heavy lifting of talking about culture. And Bong Joon-Ho, like, this is a perfect example of like, here you go, man. This has big names in it. It also has a lot of people from sort of his treasure trove of actors that he's used in other movies before. Who is it that the one Asian actor that works for the company that's sort of in the chase scene through a lot of this early stuff when the ALF gets involved is also, he's from Mother, and from a couple other I think he's also from Memories of Murder, I think also.
A lot of Bong Joon-Ho
and he's
stuff.
Fantastic. But again, it's like, it's this great intersection of saying, here's how you can get somebody that can actually do this
for sure
without stepping on a bunch of toes, like get a South Korean director, right?
Oh yeah, that's a good way to avoid it.
But I just think it's and then you're going to have somebody who really like says, oh, I definitely need Tilda Swinton, but I also need some of my staple actors that have been working with me since I was in my 20s, right?
For sure. So then we move into she goes to Seoul, Korea, against her grandfather's wishes, of course, to go find Okja, and there's this awesome truck chase.
It has more drama to it.
Where we meet the ALF, which is a real place, a real thing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of run by Dano's thing. But the truck chase is fantastic. It's so fun through these kind of inner city parts.
I said it was more exciting.
Underneath bridges.
It was more exciting than the last couple of Mission Impossible chase scenes. Like, I cared more. You know what I mean? And those ones you're like, it's more faceless guys on motorcycles got thrown off of a bridge. Whereas here, you're like,
you don't expect action in a movie like this, probably.
Not really. Yeah, and I think that but there actually is quite a bit of really powerful, well done, and at the same time really playful action sequences.
Yeah. So, and he runs, Okja gets free, he runs through the mall and all this stuff, and he gets filmed in the filming culture. There's this great shot of this Asian girl running, and she's, or this Korean girl running, and she's like filming as she's running away, and he's in the background.
Yeah, just like selfie running. Yeah,
it was pretty hilarious.
That sequence, where that sequence sort of not ends, but takes this really big pause, where Okja crashes into this kind of gift shop looking area, and it's the most beautifully directed scene. The ALF people open all of these umbrellas.
Oh, it's great.
And John Denver starts playing.
Yeah.
I just got chills thinking about it now. Yeah. Like, when I watched it, I was like the
because
very
they're
first time I saw it,
right? That's their whole thing, is non-violent.
The very first time I saw it, like, I got a little teary-eyed, and I was like, "Why is this affecting me so much?" Paul Dano goes over, and it's biblical, right? He literally takes the thorn from the beast's paw.
Oh yeah.
While John Denver plays in the background, and I was like, "This is so weird and great." Like, and there's just like, again, there's something so special about this director to kind of orchestrate these sorts of scenes that you just didn't. I don't know. You don't see coming, and you don't realize how effective they're going to be, because he seems to be doing this tightrope act of almost silliness all the time. He's like, this is almost ridiculous, and now it's going to be really powerful too.
Well, they kind of take over this truck scene and steal Okja for a little bit, right? and put this camera in his ear so they can kind of film and see everything.
Right.
And take her back, and she becomes exploited by a wonderful Giancarlo Esposito manipulating Lucy at the beginning, or at this. She's like, "Yes, we should make that," and like, I just was gonna say that.
Yeah.
She's just like leaning on anything she can do to not tarnish her legacy or her father's legacy any more than it already is.
Exactly.
Like, she has a self-hatred that is probably not all self-imposed.
Well, even her older sister tells her at one point, right? She's like, "You thought you were a grown-up for a second there, didn't you?" And you're like, she's 50 at least. Like, what are you talking about? But Giancarlo Esposito is amazing as this sort of like
he's the real
shadowy figure behind the scenes.
Yeah.
There's one scene of him, and it's when she's really starting to unravel. And he goes over and makes her an espresso, makes himself an espresso, and then he's basically finishing her sentences for her, and giving her a real U-turn in her decision making. And after she walks away, he does this move, and I don't know what the purpose of it in the world of Okja is supposed to mean, but he does something you never see a character do. He takes a sip out of his espresso cup, and then he looks at the bottom of it. And I was like, I don't know what that's supposed to telegraph to us directly, or I don't even know if it's just something that Esposito just did in the scene. But to me, it's like, it almost harkened back to something like Usual Suspects, where I was like, he's the kind of guy that would look at the bottom of the fucking cup. Hey guys, it's Sherlock here doing the editing, and while I know that this seems like a far-fetched and stupid observation on the surface, it did make me go back and watch the end of Usual Suspects again, and guess who Chaz Palminteri's detective partner is? Boom! None other than Giancarlo Esposito. That leads me to believe that this is a totally deliberate callback.
He's essentially undercover for Nancy, right?
Well, and who knows if that's even true?
I kind of got that later when they're together. It's just like he's kind of keeping an eye on her.
Maybe. I even got the impression, I even got this kind of concept of like, even that might not be enough, right? Like if that side of the operation goes ass end up, he might also be like, oh, I've already, have people to buy out my stock from this company.
I love this scene with the ALF people, ALF, as we'll call them, where they have to watch the footage of him walking through everything, and they're just like, no, we have to see this.
Well, yeah, it's you're talking about this mating scene when they bring out, here's your boyfriend.
Oh, yeah.
Which is just awful, but it's also like, well, of course that's what they do, right?
Yeah,
like they're trying to impregnate, because what's interesting to me is the one thing I couldn't ever really figure out is that Okja is the perfect super pig, but I think originally I thought that meant like the biggest.
Yeah.
But there's ones that are significantly bigger, and so I don't know if it's that she's got the right meat, or
it's like Wilbur in Charlotte's Web. He's the perfect pig, right?
Yeah, I guess. Like, I just couldn't. You know what I mean? Like, at first you're like, oh, the biggest or whatever.
But then when you would assume,
when they bring out the one that's gonna mate with her, that thing's gigantic. So I don't know. I'm not entirely. I mean, when they
maybe the males are bigger.
When he takes out the meat sample is about the grossest thing on the planet to me.
When they're like talking and they're eating some like sausage thing,
yeah,
like in some processed wrapper,
and you're like,
and they're like, delicious, and she's got this lipstick on.
Yeah, and it's pulled from a live animal. Like, that's so gross. That's so messed up that they're like thunk and pulling it out. Now, a
lot of reviews I read said, this movie will turn you vegetarian.
And that's what I was about to say, is that full disclosure, I am a vegetarian. You are not.
No.
So when I was watching it, I was like, yeah, that's...
But I think that just goes to show you kind of how creative Bong Joon-Ho is in his storytelling here. Like, and it's like kind of like they have to watch those videos of all this torture. You have to watch that too.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Now, at this point, one of the things that we kind of glossed over is the fact that Seo-hyun his character,
Yeah,
who
he
is
gets
doing the
banned.
translation so that they can actually talk to Mija, basically lies, right? She says, I want to go back to the mountains with Okja. And so he's like, she agrees to let us do this undercover work and all this. And then he ends up admitting to the rest of the group, and so they ban him, which is, Paul Dano basically kicking his ass around the room.
Yeah, I know they're non-violent, but I don't know. I feel like Dano's character is actually very genuine here.
Yeah.
He seems like he means what he says, and he's not just bullshitting her to get what he wants. He's truly wanting to, and there's a moment where that's in question, I think.
And I think that's some casting 101, because Dano's one of these guys who has played, or Dano's one of these guys who rarely gets to play just a straight hero. He usually has a character who has some duplicity to him, or a character who, whose sanity is in question. You think about something like There Will Be Blood, right? Where you're like, oh, he's not a good guy, there's something wrong with him. And here he plays really against type of being, like you're saying, for the most part, just a really good genuine character.
I do love how they keep talking about how good the meat is, and they're in that. It was Giancarlo and Tilda in a room, and they're just sitting back eating this processed meat, and they're like, delicious.
Yeah,
they're just choking it down.
Yeah, it's just so good.
I wonder how good it really is. We get this part when we get to meet Nancy finally after probably an hour and a half of the movie, which is her twin sister, also played by Tilda Swinton. And they almost play her from behind, from a camera angle. You don't even really see her face until near the end of the movie. Yeah, and it's kind of weird because it's still the Swinton,
it's still her,
and they were trying to make it. It's obviously still her, and I don't know. It seems like when people play twins, they try and get them on screen together as much as possible. Yeah. Not only that, but I just felt like that's one thing I thought was kind of weak in this movie, was that we could have had more of her. She had such an interesting backstory. I wanted to know way more about her than even Lucy at the beginning, because she's way more interesting.
And she's a really weird character. Yeah. She's very, her whole idea once she takes over is okay, kill them all. And we're like, well, what about these ones over here so that we can breed more? And she's like, I don't care. We can't sell them if they're alive. Kill them. Yeah. And you're like, oh, that's not a really good idea.
I mean, I'm not saying if you're a business person.
Yeah, I guess so, but it's also
she takes after her father.
Yeah,
that kind of stuff. So
and maybe that's the key. Yeah,
it totally is. But Tilda Swinton is amazing here. But we get this presentation finally near the end here, where Jake Gyllenhaal presents Okja and Mija to the world, right? And he shows the super pig,
and he's in his crazy ass Mr. Peanut striped,
it's so weird,
striped outfit with his little shorts and his high socks.
His voice, he has just a high pitchy voice,
it's
complaining.
So weird.
It's really fun to watch.
It's very, very fun.
And of course, this the ALF has plans to overtake this and get Okja back.
It's fun to see how they plan all this out, where they're placed in the crowd, and you don't know what's going to happen either, and so you're kind of it's so heartbreaking when she sees Okja and just how beat up she is and bloodshot eyes, and it's
Paul Dano has this great scene with her before that though, with cards in English and in her language. Yes. Talking about, he's like, we're gonna take advantage. Here's when we're gonna do this, and whenever we go to get Okja, do not look at the screen behind you. Yes. And all this stuff. And I thought, I don't know, again, another genuine moment from him. But we get this reveal. Everything goes to shit. Of course, they see each other. This is a huge animal that's running around at some point and knocking people over. And, people start rioting in the middle of all of this stuff.
Because on the computer or on the screens, they hack into them and they're showing not just Okja, basically being raped by one of the other pigs. I don't know if a pig can an animal rape an animal?
Sure. Duck rape happens at my work all the time.
Don't add us about that. Anyway, so...
I mean, it's true.
I know, they are pretty terrible animals. Yeah. But not just that, but also Gyllenhaal's character pulling the little bits of meat out of the animal. And I think there's enough people that go, oh, like they're not interested in that. It's funny what Nancy's comment about that is later, where Esposito says, well, like those people are not happy. I don't know if they're going to buy it. And she's like, if it's cheap, they will. Right? If it's cheap and it tastes good.
She's not wrong.
I know. It's totally true.
I love in the middle of all this rioting, though, that Okja and Mija have this really sweet moment on stage that no one is paying attention to.
Yeah, exactly.
And they just have this really cute moment in all the chaos of where they're just kind of hugging and she's stroking him in a way that she's familiar and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. Beautiful little movie.
It really is.
Not for everyone. Again, probably it has some harsh realities that are probably. This seems like a very realistic future to me.
It really is, and that's the thing. Is it's like like I said at the beginning of the review, this idea of like, oh, this almost this is really close to having the feel of a kind of Goonies-esque, like something from the 80s that's a little bit gritty or whatever.
Yeah, I never thought that, but I can see where you're coming from.
Then it gets into the slaughterhouse, right? Mm-hmm. And at first I was like, whoa, except for this stuff, man, this is getting dark. And then I stopped for half a second and I was like, I mean, darker than what? They're darker than where Happy Meals actually come from? Like, not really. Like,
yeah.
Right? I mean, the only thing that really makes this sci-fi, obviously is the giant pig, right?
Yeah, and just a kind of not so distant future.
Exactly.
Right? Of the world growing, being, taking over the resources of the world more than they are now, like by 1 billion people more.
Right. But if you turned the volume down on those elements and you turned the volume down on the fanfare around Okja a little bit, but you said it still is a prize-winning pig that happens to be some kid's best friend on a farm somewhere, you could pretty much remake the whole movie.
It's true.
Right now.
I mean, we have seen this story before in that aspect, where like, oh, this girl or this child falls in love with an animal,
and the animal's
gets
due to be slaughtered.
To it.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, sorry, Sally.
Totally, I know, right? Sorry, Sally.
That was the name of the movie.
Sorry.
Sorry, Sally, you've never seen it?
It is the saddest film. Sorry, Sally.
Oh, sorry, Sally.
Yeah, that's
Anyways, underrated director. Go check out all of his work. Next episode, we're going to do Ex Machina by Alex Garland.
Yep.
Really excited for that one. We will see you then. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe.
Yes, for this episode, I'm an Adam Sherlock.
You're a Adam Sherlock?
I have been Adam Sherlock. I won't be next week. No, I am. I will be. I'm still going to, unless somebody else comes along and really wants the job, then they could be Adam Sherlock.
They're lining up.
Yeah. Oh, listen, get a ticket if you want to be. All right.
I'm Adam Palcher, by the way.
We'll see you guys next time.
See ya.
Sherlock.
And I'm Adam Palcher.
And I'm Adam Palcher. Okay. Hi guys, damn it, guys. Hi guys. Hi guys. Okay. Fuck.
Okay. I'm going to be smiling too big when we come in.
I know. I'm Adam Sherlock.
Is that real?
Like, is it really my name?
I'm Sherlock. Okay, let's really do this. Sorry. And I think Bong Joon-Ho really likes the class warfare stuff a bit, right? Like if you think of his past movies, Snowpiercer is the biggest example.
Well, to me, this
even
movie
The Host has
very much so.
That.
Very much so. The Host also has the really funny family dynamics that we see in this movie. I think Okja could be 6 months before the start of Snowpiercer. Right?
Sure.
There are too many people on the planet. Everybody is battling with each other. There's all these like weird little terrorist factions, like underground groups, you know?
Well, we get this kind of opening montage after she has this news conference that kind of just sets up the exposition for the movie.
Right.
Basically, and that they need 10 years to raise these super pigs is basically what they call them. They're like pigs the size of rhinos, pretty much.
Yeah, or even like a hippo.
I think it was based off of a manatee.
Oh, okay, I could see that.
I mean, you can see it in the face, but just huge things. But we get this almost My Neighbor Totoro, right, vibes to it, right?
Totally.
At the beginning, where she's walking around with this big goofy animal, and they're kind of having these cute little things.
There's a lot of Studio Ghibli in this early scene, definitely.
You can tell he was influenced by Miyazaki, absolutely.
Yeah.